Tonight, let's spend one day in London. Just one single day, June 1923. The sun is warm and the city is waking up. No need to stay awake for all of it. Just drift along. If you fall asleep halfway through, that's fine. The story will be here. A woman named Clarissa Dalloway is giving a party tonight. That's all. But Virginia Woolf made this one day feel like an entire lifetime. Clarissa opens her front door and steps into the morning. She's decided to buy the flowers herself. The air hits her face like a wave. Bond Street is already bustling. Motor cars inch past horse carts. A flower seller arranges dahlias on a stall. London smells of petrol and roses together. Clarissa loves this. The chaos, the noise, the sheer aliveness of the city. She loves London with something close to physical joy, like a lover. And then Big Ben strikes. The sound rolls across Westminster like a wave. Leaden circles dissolving in the air. Time moves, whether we're ready or not. Suddenly a loud bang. A car backfires in the street. Everyone stops. In 1923, 4 years after the war, loud noises still carry a different weight. In that same crowd stands a young man named Septimus Warren Smith. He hears the bang and the world cracks open. The pavement shakes beneath his feet. His wife Razia holds his arm. She's Italian, small and dark-haired, and she's terrified. Not of the bang of him. Of what's happening inside his mind. Above them all, an aeroplane writes letters in the sky. White smoke trails spelling out an advertisement. Everyone looks up. Clarissa, Septimus, strangers, all of them. They'll never meet, Clarissa and Septimus. They share this city, this sky, this moment. But their worlds are invisible to each other. That's the whole novel. Clarissa enters the flower shop. The cool air hits her, heavy with scent. Delphiniums, sweet peas, roses and carnations. She breathes it all in like a first breath. Something about the flowers pulls her backward in time. The smell of earth and green stems. Suddenly she's not in London anymore. She's somewhere younger, lost. Picture Bourton, a country house in summer. The terrace doors are thrown open. Young Clarissa stands in the morning air, 18 years old, everything still possible. And there was Sally Seton. Wild, beautiful Sally who arrived at Bourton like a storm. She picked flowers and walked naked down the hallway. Nobody had ever met anyone like her. One evening in the garden, Sally kissed her. Right on the lips. Clarissa would remember it as the most exquisite moment of her whole life. A diamond, something infinitely precious. There was also Peter Walsh. Passionate, brilliant, impossible Peter. He wanted everything from Clarissa. Every thought, every feeling, every private corner of her soul. Clarissa chose Richard Dalloway instead. Kind, steady, undemanding Richard. Peter never forgave her. He went to India. He carried his grief like a pocket knife. Why Richard? Because with Richard there was room. He didn't need to possess her entirely. He left space for the private places inside her that belonged to no one. Back in the present, Clarissa walks home with her arms full of flowers, the memory of Bourton fading like morning mist. She is 52 now, and the party is tonight. She enters the house. The hallway is cool after the June heat. Everything familiar. The hall table, the umbrella stand. The particular silence of home pressing gently around her. Upstairs, Clarissa has her own room. A narrow single bed. Like a nun's room, she thinks. She sleeps alone now. Richard is down the hall. She puts down the flowers and stands at the window. Is this enough? This life, this house, this party. The question rises like a tide and then retreats. It always. She takes out her green evening dress and begins mending it. Needle and thread, the small domestic ritual. Preparing for the party is its own kind of meditation. The door opens. A voice she hasn't heard in 5 years. Peter Walsh stands there, just back from India, older and heavier. Still fumbling with that ridiculous pocket knife. Peter looks at Clarissa and thinks, she hasn't changed. But of course she has. There are lines around her eyes now, silver in her hair. Time is unkind and precise. Something cracks between them. The old argument surfaces. You chose wrong, Clarissa. You chose safety over passion. They talk around it, not through it. They always have. And then Peter cries. He can't help it. The tears come and he fumbles for his handkerchief while Clarissa crosses the room. She takes his hand. Some things are beyond words. The door opens again. Elizabeth, Clarissa's 17-year-old daughter, enters. Dark-haired, tall, nothing like her mother. Peter stares. Time really has moved on without him. Peter leaves the house. The door closes behind him and London swallows him whole. He walks without direction, just feeling, just aching. Pocket knife turning in his hand. He still loves her. After 30 years, 5 years in India, a failed marriage, and a new young woman, he still loves Clarissa. It's almost funny. Almost. In Regent's Park, Peter spots a young woman walking ahead of him. He follows her, not dangerously, just dreamily. Still chasing youth. Still imagining possibilities that are already gone. He sits on a bench and falls asleep. Just like that. In the middle of the park, in the middle of the day. Dreams come, a giant woman, a solitary traveler, shapes without meaning. Not far from Peter's bench, Septimus and Rezia sit together. The same park, the same June warmth. But Septimus is somewhere else entirely. Somewhere terrible and beautiful and unreachable. Rezia whispers to him. Look at the trees, Septimus. Look at the children playing. Come back to me. But he can't. The real world and his world have come unstuck from each other. He sees Evans. His friend from the war, Evans, who died in Italy just before the armistice. Evans is standing among the trees, perfectly clear, smiling. The birds are singing in Greek. Before the war, Septimus was a romantic young clerk who loved Shakespeare. He volunteered because it seemed like the right thing, the brave thing. He had no idea what was coming. Evans died, and Septimus felt nothing. That was the worst part. Not the bombs or the mud. The fact that his best friend died, and he couldn't feel anything at all. They called it shell shock. The doctors said rest, fresh air, marriage. As if a wife and a walk in the park could undo what the trenches had done to his mind. Dr. Holmes comes cheerfully to check on him. Nothing wrong, he says. Just nerves, go to a music hall, eat some porridge. The uselessness of this advice is breathtaking in its cruelty. Rezia is so alone. She left Milan for this man, left her sisters and the sunshine and the easy laughter. Now she stands in foggy London watching her husband disappear into himself. She remembers her sisters in Milan. Making hats together, the three of them chattering and sewing. The smell of fabric and coffee. A whole life she traded for love, and love has turned into fear. They still love each other. That's the terrible thing. Love hasn't gone anywhere. But something has gotten between them. A wall made of trauma, invisible and thick as stone. Meanwhile, across London, Clarissa discovers she hasn't been invited to Lady Bruton's luncheon. Richard has gone without her. A small wound, but it stings more than it should. Lady Bruton is formidable. A woman of military bearing and strong opinions who needs men to help her write a simple letter to the Times. The irony is Woolf's quiet gift. Clarissa stands alone in her house and feels it. The chill of being left out. Even after decades of marriage, even in your own beautiful home, exclusion can shrink you to nothing. Richard Dalloway sits at Lady Bruton's table, thinking about Clarissa. He loves her. He wants to tell her so. But the words have never come easily. They bunch up in his throat like traffic. After lunch, Richard walks home through St. James's Park, carrying red and white roses. Today he will say it. Today he will tell Clarissa he loves her. He is almost sure of it. He gives her the flowers. She holds them against her chest. And the words. He manages something about a committee. I love you. Too enormous, too terrifying, he cannot say it. But Clarissa understands. She has always understood Richard without words. The roses are the words. The coming home is the sentence. This imperfect language has been enough for 30 years. The doorbell rings. Miss Kilman has arrived for Elizabeth. Clarissa's whole body tightens. Of all the people in the world, Miss Kilman is the one she cannot bear. Kilman is poor, plain, and fiercely religious. She was fired from her teaching post during the war for sympathizing with Germany. She has every reason to resent women like Clarissa. But underneath the righteousness, Kilman is starving. Not for food, for love, for belonging, for someone to see her. She prays constantly, which only makes her more isolated. Elizabeth stands between these two women. Her mother, all silk and pearls and party invitations. Her tutor, all God and grievance and uncomfortable truth. Two versions of how to be a woman. Elizabeth and Kilman go to the Army and Navy stores for tea. The vast department store swallows them. Kilman orders eclairs and tea, and something desperate hangs over the table. Kilman eats the eclairs with a hunger that has nothing to do with sugar and cream. She is consuming comfort itself, trying to fill a hole that no amount of pastry can reach. Elizabeth escapes. She steps onto a red omnibus alone, riding up the Strand toward the city, and the whole world opens. She feels the thrill of being no one's daughter, no one's prize. Up on the omnibus, Elizabeth thinks she could be a doctor. She could be a farmer. She could run a business or ride horses or do anything at all. The future is a door left open. Elizabeth doesn't want parties. She doesn't want pearls or flower arrangements, or the careful social machinery her mother operates. She wants something she can't name yet. She wants purpose. Here's something remarkable about this novel. Woolf doesn't tell the story in a straight line. She drifts from one mind to the next, the way thoughts actually move, sideways, without warning. And Big Ben keeps striking. Every hour, the sound rolls across London like a stone dropped in water. It connects everyone. Clarissa in Westminster, Septimus in Bloomsbury, Peter in the park. Back at the house, Clarissa begins the real preparations. The silver is polished, the glasses set out, flowers arranged in every room. She moves through the house like a conductor before the concert. What does the party mean to Clarissa? It's her art, her gift to the world. She brings people together, creates a moment of shared life. It's how she fights against the darkness. Clarissa thinks about death more often than anyone knows. She's been reading Shakespeare. Fear no more the heat o' the sun. The line runs through her mind like a stream, constant and cool. Here is the novel's strange symmetry. Clarissa fears the death of the self, being swallowed by society, lost in the performance. Septimus fears the opposite, feeling so much that the self shatters. Now we come to Dr. Bradshaw, Sir William Bradshaw, Harley Street specialist. He is the most frightening character in this novel, and he never raises his voice once. Bradshaw worships two goddesses: proportion and conversion. Keep everything in proportion. Convert the deviant to the norm. His cures are a kind of violence dressed in good manners. Bradshaw sentences Septimus to a rest home, separation from his wife, solitude and supervision. It's meant to heal. But Septimus knows. They want to make him feel nothing again, and he'd rather die. Something hardens inside Septimus. The doctors want to cure him, but cure means conformity. Cure means feeling nothing, caring about nothing. They want to scrape the poetry out of his skull. Rizia is breaking apart. She has watched her husband slip away for months. And now the specialists, who were supposed to help, are taking him from her too. She has no one left to turn to. But then, a moment of grace. Back in their room, Septimus watches Rizia making a hat. The feathers, the silk, her quick fingers. Something ordinary and beautiful cracks the ice around him. They laugh together. For the first time in months, they actually laugh. The hat is ridiculous and perfect. Septimus decorates it with her and their fingers touch over the brim. This is marriage. A knock at the door. Dr. Holmes has come. He's climbing the stairs with his heavy, cheerful tread. The men with the cure have arrived. Time's up. Septimus looks at Rizia. He looks at the hat. He looks at the window. Something settles in his eyes like a stone falling through clear water. He knows what comes next. He's already decided. Septimus stands at the window. The sun is still warm. London stretches below him. Rooftops, chimneys, the distant river. The world is unbearably, impossibly beautiful one last time. "I'll give it to you," he cries. And then he is gone. Through the window, into the air, into the railings below. Woolf doesn't linger. She gives us the fact, not the spectacle. Rizia screams. The sound fills the boarding house stairwell. The landlady comes running. Dr. Holmes pushes past them all, heavy boots on the stairs. But there is nothing left to cure. Dr. Holmes looks down and says, "The coward. That's all. A man destroyed by war, abandoned by medicine, and his doctor's final word for him is coward. Woolf wants you to feel the outrage." An ambulance crosses London. Its bell rings through the June afternoon. People step aside. Life rearranges itself around death the way water closes over a stone. The city continues. Peter Walsh hears the ambulance from his hotel room. How efficient, he thinks. One of the triumphs of civilization. He has no idea whose body it carries. None of us ever do. The city absorbs the death. It has practice. 4 years of war taught London how to keep going. By evening the streets will fill again. The party will happen. Clarissa will light her candles. Evening falls over London like a held breath. The sky turns from blue to lavender to deep violet. Lights appear in windows one by one. Somewhere across the city, Clarissa is getting dressed. She checks the flowers one more time, adjusts a candle, smooths a tablecloth. The nervous energy of a hostess, before the first doorbell, is its own particular kind of exquisite suffering. The first guests arrive. Clarissa stands at the top of the stairs in her blue gown, pearls at her throat, and something happens. She becomes the party. She radiates. This is her gift. She moves among them like a current. A word here, a touch on the arm there, drawing this person toward that one, creating connections. The room warms. Laughter rises. The party begins to live. Peter Walsh arrives. He stands in the doorway, scanning the room, and there she is, Clarissa in blue, laughing, alive, belonging entirely to this world that excluded him. He feels the old wound open. Peter judges the party. Too many politicians. Too much showing off. But underneath the judgment he knows Clarissa is not superficial. She makes life happen. He's never been able to do that. The Prime Minister arrives. The whole room shifts. Heads turn. Voices drop then rise. Clarissa is triumphant. She has pulled it off. The social machinery hums at its highest frequency. And then, Sally Seton walks in, not the wild girl from Bourton. Lady Rossiter, now married to a wealthy man, mother of 5 sons. Clarissa stares. Peter stares. Time is the cruelest magician. Sally and Peter find each other in a corner. 2 old friends who once shared everything, now comparing the lives they actually got. They talk about Clarissa the way archaeologists talk about a beautiful ruin. Is Sally diminished? She talks about her sons, her garden, her husband's business. The woman who once declared she would reform the world now discusses hydrangeas. Or has she simply found peace? Peter asks Sally, is Clarissa happy? They turn the question over like a stone, examining it from every side. Happy with Richard? Happy with this life? The question has no answer. That is the answer. Richard stands by the fireplace, solid and reliable, watching his wife navigate the room. He doesn't understand half of what she does, but he knows it matters. He holds her world steady so she can spin. Elizabeth drifts through the party like a sleepwalker. 17, beautiful, completely bored. She stands by the curtain and watches the adults perform. She already senses there must be something more. Looking at Elizabeth, Clarissa sees her own youth walking through the room. But Elizabeth is nothing like her. She's darker, quieter, more serious. She will make different choices. Perhaps better ones. Dr. Bradshaw arrives late. Clarissa greets him and feels an instant chill. Something about his smooth confidence, his proprietary manner. She dislikes him without knowing why. But Woolf knows we know. Bradshaw mentions it casually. A young man, a veteran shell shock, threw himself from a window today. Just like that, death enters the party. It walks in with the doctor and sits among the roses. Clarissa withdraws. She leaves the party, crosses the hall, enters a small empty room. She needs to be alone with this. A young man has killed himself. On the day of her party. Why does it feel personal? She imagines it. The window, the fall, the railings below. She sees it as clearly as if she were there. The ground rushing up. The body's final surrender. She feels it in her own chest like a blow. And then something extraordinary happens in Clarissa's mind. She understands him. This stranger. He refused to let them blunt his feeling. He preserved something by choosing to end it. His death was not defeat. She felt glad that he had done it. The most shocking sentence in the novel. Not glad of his death. Glad of his refusal. He threw away the thing they prize most, and in doing so, he kept it. Death and the party. They belong together, Clarissa realizes. The beauty of this evening exists because it will end. The candles burn because they consume themselves. That's not tragic. That's the truth. Clarissa looks out the window. Across the way, in the house opposite, she sees an old woman in her room, moving slowly, preparing for bed, switching off the light. A stranger's quiet ritual, witnessed. The old woman is alone. She doesn't know she's being watched. She moves through her room with the dignity of someone who has done this 1,000 times. The lamp goes off. Darkness. Rest. Clarissa gathers herself. She straightens her pearls. She touches her hair. She will return to the party. She will go on. Not because the pain isn't real, but because going on is its own answer. For there she was. The last words of the novel. Peter Walsh sees Clarissa come back into the room. That's all. She's there. Present, alive. After everything, she is simply, magnificently there. 4 words. For there she was. Not a resolution. Not a lesson, just presence. Being here, being now, being alive in a room full of flowers and light and other people. That is enough. Think about that. The entire novel takes place in a single day. One Wednesday in June, 1923. But inside that day, Woolf fits an entire life. Births, deaths, loves, regrets, everything. Clarissa and Septimus never meet. But they are 2 sides of the same person. She chose to live within society's rules. He couldn't. She performed. He broke. They understood the same terrible beauty. Both of them knew it. That the world is too much and too beautiful to bear. Clarissa felt it buying flowers. Septimus felt it watching sparrows. The intensity of being alive is almost unbearable, almost. Woolf's great subject is this tension. The need to connect with others, and the need to remain private. The soul that wants communion and the soul that wants solitude. We live in both places. So what was the party really? Not vanity. Not performance. It was Clarissa's way of saying we are here together, briefly, in this light. Let's not waste it. Let's look at each other's faces while we can. Every party is an act of faith. People leave their separate rooms and come together for a few hours. They talk, they laugh, they pretend to understand each other. Sometimes the pretending becomes real. Remember the flowers. She bought them that morning. Delphiniums, roses, carnations. They've been opening all day in the warm rooms. Now at the party they're at their fullest. Tomorrow they'll start to die. Peter's pocket knife. He fidgets with it constantly, opening, closing, opening. It's his nervous habit, his security blanket, his way of keeping his hands busy while his heart breaks open. Woolf notices everything. Proportion and conversion. Those are the words Woolf uses for what Bradshaw does. Keep things proportionate, meaning keep quiet. Convert the deviant, meaning crush anyone who feels too much. Woolf understood psychiatry's dark side. Not the healing, the control. The way society uses medicine to silence those who see too clearly, who feel too deeply, who refuse to pretend everything is fine. And Rizia, left behind in a boarding house with a sedative and a dead husband. The Italian girl who crossed the Alps for love. Woolf gives her grief but also, quietly, something else, survival. Remember the skywriting plane. In the morning, everyone looked up. Clarissa, Septimus, Peter, strangers. They all read different words in the same smoke. The city shared a sky but not a meaning. London itself is a character in this novel. It breathes and moves and makes sounds. The buses, the bells, the flower sellers, the ambulances. The city is alive the way a body is alive, with its own pulse. Listen for the sounds. Big Ben tolling the hour. St. Margaret's chiming a moment later, softer, more feminine. Motor horns. Birdsong. Footsteps. Woolf builds her novel from sound as much as sight. June 1923. The war ended 5 years ago, but its ghost walks through every street. Young men with missing limbs sell matches on corners. The memorials are still fresh with flowers. Every character in this novel carries the war differently. Clarissa feels its absence. The young men who should be at her party. Peter fled to India. Richard votes on its consequences. Septimus brought it home in his body. Now let's leave the story for a while. Let's talk about the woman who wrote it. Because Virginia Woolf's life is as extraordinary as anything she ever put on the page. Stay with me. Virginia Woolf was born in 1882. Adeline Virginia Stephen. Her family lived at 22 Hyde Park Gate in London. A tall, narrow house stuffed with books and grief and genius. The Stephen household was extraordinary. Her father, Leslie Stephen, was a famous literary critic. The house overflowed with writers, thinkers, and visitors. Virginia grew up surrounded by words the way other children grow up, surrounded by toys. Her mother, Julia, was beautiful and exhausted. She nursed the sick, managed the household, modeled for painters, and held everything together until she simply couldn't anymore. Julia died when Virginia was 13. The grief broke something in Virginia. Her first breakdown came at 13. Voices, terrors, the inability to eat or sleep. It would return throughout her life, a dark companion she could never fully outrun. Her father, Leslie Stephen, was brilliant and tyrannical. After Julia died, he leaned on his children with devastating emotional weight. He raged. He wept. He demanded they fill the absence their mother left. Vanessa, Virginia's older sister, became her protector. And Stella, their half-sister, tried to mother them all. But Stella died too, just 2 years after Julia. Death kept taking the women who held things together. There was something else, something Virginia rarely spoke of directly. Her half-brothers Gerald and George Duckworth touched her in ways no child should be touched. The violation shaped her relationship with her own body forever. Hyde Park Gate was suffocating. The Victorian household with its rules, its grief, its secrets pressed in on Virginia like a closing fist. She needed to escape. She needed air and light and a room of her own. Leslie Stephen died in 1904. Virginia grieved and broke down again. But when she recovered, she and Vanessa did something radical. They moved to Bloomsbury. They opened the windows. They started over. Gordon Square, Bloomsbury. The address that changed English culture. Virginia and Vanessa and their brother Thobby hosted Thursday evening gatherings where young people talked about art and truth with absolute seriousness and no pretension. The Bloomsbury Group was born. Lytton Strachey, John Maynard Keynes, E.M. Forster, Roger Fry, Duncan Grant, writers, painters, economists. They believed in beauty, honesty, and the supreme importance of personal relationships. Then Toby died. 26 years old, typhoid fever, caught on a trip to Greece. Virginia's beloved brother, the center of their circle, gone. Another death. Another rebuilding. Death was always near Virginia. Mother, sister, brother, each loss carved deeper. But each time she returned to language, she wrote her way back to life. The sentences were her lifeline, her rope in the dark. Vanessa married Clive Bell. Virginia felt abandoned. Her sister, her protector, now belonging to someone else. The jealousy was fierce and irrational, and she knew it, which didn't make it stop. Leonard Woolf entered her life. A friend of Thobby's from Cambridge. Thin, intense, trembling with conviction. He had been a colonial administrator in Ceylon, but came back for Virginia. He saw her completely, and he stayed. Virginia hesitated. She wrote to Leonard that she felt no physical desire for him. She wasn't sure she could be a wife in the way the world expected. But something in his steadiness called to something in her chaos. They married in 1912. It was not a conventional union. It was a partnership, intellectual, creative, fiercely loyal. Leonard became her anchor, her editor, her guardian. For 30 years he held the center. Leonard monitored Virginia's health with devotion that sometimes felt like surveillance. He tracked her moods, controlled her schedule, decided when she could work and when she must rest. Love and control tangled together. Her first novel, The Voyage Out, was published in 1915. The process nearly destroyed her. the anxiety of exposure, the terror of judgment. Writing was ecstasy, but publication was agony. The breakdown after the voyage out was the worst yet. Virginia attempted suicide with an overdose of Veronal. Leonard found her. The doctors came. She spent months in darkness, hearing voices, refusing food. But she came back. She always came back. And in 1917, Virginia and Leonard bought a small hand printing press. They set it up on their dining table. They called it the Hogarth Press. It changed everything. The Hogarth Press meant freedom. No more submitting to publishers who might demand changes. No more waiting for approval. Virginia could write exactly as she wished and print it herself. Her own words, her own way. Night and Day came in 1919. Then Jacob's Room in 22, her first real experiment, a portrait made almost entirely from gaps and absences. She was finding her voice, or rather, her voices. And then Mrs. Dalloway began forming. Virginia wanted to write a novel that captured how consciousness actually works. Not in straight lines but in spirals, not in chapters but in waves. Stream of consciousness. Woolf didn't invent the technique. James Joyce and Dorothy Richardson came before her. But Woolf made it sing. In her hands, thoughts don't march. They float, they ripple, they dissolve. The working title was The Hours, because that's what the novel is about. Hours passing, striking, dissolving. Time as a character, as a prison, as a gift, the clock that connects us all. She changed the title to Mrs. Dalloway, because the novel isn't really about time. It's about a woman. A specific woman with a specific name and a specific party to give in a specific life she's uncertain about. She wrote Mrs. Dalloway between 1923 and 24. Her diary from those months reveals the struggle. Days of exhilaration followed by nights of crushing doubt. Every sentence was a negotiation. Septimus wasn't in the original plan. Virginia added him later, realizing Clarissa needed a shadow self, someone who experienced the same reality from the other side of sanity. It was the stroke of genius that completed the novel. Virginia knew madness from the inside. She had heard the voices, felt the ground dissolve, experienced the terror and the strange beauty that Septimus describes. She gave him her own ghosts, her own visions. The doctors Virginia knew were not unlike Dr. Bradshaw. Sir George Savage prescribed rest cures. No reading, no writing, no visitors, enforced weight gain. For Virginia, this was its own kind of death. Dr. Bradshaw is Virginia's revenge. She took everything she hated about the medical establishment, the condescension, the control, the absolute certainty, and compressed it into one immaculately dressed monster. Mrs. Dalloway was published on May 14, 1925. The day the novel entered the world and changed what English prose could do. Nothing would be written quite the same way again. The reviews were mixed. Some critics found the novel baffling. Where was the plot? Others recognized genius immediately. The modernists knew. Forster knew. The readers who mattered understood that something new had arrived. After Dalloway came to the Lighthouse in 1927, an even more personal novel, Virginia's Parents Reimagined, the family summers at the coast, the loss and the light on the water. Her masterpiece, some would say. Then Orlando in 1928, a love letter disguised as a novel, a character who changes sex across 4 centuries. Playful, dazzling, completely unlike anything anyone had written before. Virginia was having fun. Orlando was inspired by Vita Sackville West, aristocrat, gardener, writer, and Virginia's lover. Their affair was passionate, transformative, and gave Virginia permission to explore desire she'd long suppressed. A Room of One's Own arrived in 1929, the essay that changed feminism forever. Virginia's argument was deceptively simple. Women need money and space to create. Everything else follows from that. A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. That sentence lit a fire that hasn't gone out. Nearly a century later, we're still working toward what Virginia imagined. The Waves came in 1931, 6 voices speaking across a lifetime, from childhood to old age. Perhaps her most beautiful and most difficult novel. She pushed language to its breaking point and held it there, trembling. Through the 1930s, the world darkened. Fascism rose in Italy and Germany. Spain caught fire. Virginia watched the political nightmare, approaching with the same acute sensitivity she brought to everything. Three Guineas, published in 1938, made the connection explicit. Patriarchy breeds fascism breeds war. The men who control the home are the same men who march toward destruction. Virginia had never been angrier or more clear. War came. Virginia and Leonard retreated to Monk's house in Sussex. German bombs fell on London. Their Bloomsbury home was destroyed. The printing press buried under rubble. The old world literally crumbled around them. She wrote her last novel, Between the Acts, in the shadow of the bombs. An English village staging a pageant while the world burns. The most English of novels, written as England itself seemed about to disappear. The voices came back. In early 1940, Virginia felt the familiar darkness gathering, the inability to concentrate, the headaches, the sense that reality was coming loose from its moorings. She recognized the signs. She wrote to Leonard, the most famous farewell letter in English literature. I feel certain I am going mad again. You have given me the greatest possible happiness. She left it on the mantelpiece. March 28, 1941. Virginia put on her overcoat, filled the pockets with stones, walked across the water meadows to the river Ouse, and kept walking. The river took her. She was 59. The world lost her. Not just a writer, a way of seeing. The particular Woolf gaze that could find eternity in a flower arrangement, or hear a lifetime in the striking of a clock. That gaze went dark. Leonard lived on until 1969. 28 years without her. He tended her reputation with the same devotion he'd tended her health. He published her diaries, her letters, her unfinished work. He kept her alive on the page. The diaries and letters Virginia left behind are extraordinary. 5 volumes of diaries, 6 of letters. They reveal a mind of astonishing range. Witty, cruel, generous, terrified, blazing with life even in its darkest passages. What Virginia Woolf gave literature cannot be measured. She showed that the inner life is as vast and dramatic as any battlefield. She proved that a woman buying flowers contains as much story as a man conquering a kingdom. Her influence on feminism extends far beyond a room of one's own. Every novel she wrote argued that women's experiences are worthy of the highest art. The parties, the domestic labor, the private agonies, all of it matters. Mrs. Dalloway is autobiography in disguise. Clarissa's Party Giving is Virginia's novel writing. Both are acts of creation, of gathering scattered elements into something beautiful and temporary that defies the darkness. And Septimus is Virginia's self-portrait from the dark side. The artist who feels too much, who sees too clearly, who is destroyed by a world that demands he dull his senses and conform. She gave him her own terror. The courage of writing Mrs. Dalloway was enormous. Virginia put her own madness, her own desire, her own fear of death on the page and made it art. She transformed private pain into something that heals strangers. That is bravery. Now let's look at the world Clarissa lived in. England 1923. The Great War ended 5 years ago, but its shadow falls across everything, every street, every family, every silence. Nearly 1 million British men died in the trenches. An entire generation. The women who sent them away and the men who came back lived in a country that had been hollowed out from the inside. Shell shock was everywhere and nowhere. The returning soldiers couldn't describe what they'd seen. Their families couldn't imagine it. The word itself, shell shock, was an attempt to name something medicine barely understood. The British stiff upper lip was both armor and prison. Families didn't talk about the dead. Husbands didn't describe the trenches. Wives didn't ask. The silence grew like ivy over everything, beautiful and suffocating. The class system survived the war almost intact. The Dalloways still had their Westminster house, their servants, their parties. On the surface, nothing had changed. Beneath the surface, everything had shifted. The foundations were cracking. Women had tasted independence during the war. They drove ambulances, ran factories, managed farms. Then the men came back and women were expected to return to their parlors. Some did. Some couldn't. All of them remembered. The Roaring Twenties. That was mostly America. England's 20s were quieter, more haunted. There were parties, yes, but they had a fevered quality. Dancing on a grave, celebrating because the alternative was screaming. The British Empire was beginning to crack. India, where Peter Walsh had spent his years, was stirring toward independence. Peter brings the colonies into Clarissa's drawing room simply by arriving with that sunburned face. London in 1923 was still the capital of the world's largest empire. The grand buildings, the monuments, the parks, all proclaimed power and permanence. But permanence was the lie the century was about to expose. Clarissa's party mirrors the nation. Beautiful on the surface, glittering, full of the right people saying the right things. And underneath, the anxiety, the grief, the nagging sense that all of this might not survive the decade. Virginia Woolf wasn't writing alone. She was part of a revolution. Joyce's Ulysses appeared in 22. Eliot's Waste Land the same year. The modernists were dismantling the old forms and building new ones from the wreckage. Why stream of consciousness? Because after the war, the old way of telling stories, beginning, middle, end, felt like a lie. Life didn't move in straight lines anymore. The modernists made form match the fracture. Time in Mrs. Dalloway is not a clock, it's a river. It pools and eddies. Clarissa is buying flowers in 1923 and simultaneously kissing Sally in 1890. Past and present coexist. They always do. People compare Woolf to Joyce. Both map the interior landscape. But where Joyce piled up detail obsessively, Woolf distilled. Her consciousness is translucent, musical. Joyce gives you everything. Woolf gives you the essential thing. The Bloomsbury Group believed in beauty and personal relationships above all else. They rejected Victorian hypocrisy. They said, tell the truth about what you feel, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's scandalous. Is Clarissa a feminist? She chose marriage, parties, domestic life. But she made that choice. She created beauty from within the constraints. Virginia doesn't judge her. She illuminates her. That's a kind of feminism, too. Every marriage in the novel is imperfect. Clarissa and Richard can't say what they feel. Septimus and Rhea are torn apart by trauma. The Bradshaws operate on power, not love. Woolf shows us that imperfect is the only kind there is. Septimus belongs alongside the great war poets, Owen Sassoon Graves. But Woolf writes from the civilian side. She shows what happens when the soldier comes home and the war doesn't leave. The aftermath of the aftermath. Class runs through the novel like a fault line. Clarissa has everything: house, husband, party. Kilman has nothing but her faith and her bitterness. Septimus falls between the cracks. War made them equal, peace sorted them back out. What 1923 didn't know was that another war was coming. 16 years later, the bombs would fall. Knowing this makes Clarissa's party even more poignant. This fragile beauty balanced on the edge of history. Now let's follow the novel out of its own time. Because Mrs. Dalloway didn't stay in 1925. It kept traveling forward, finding new readers, gathering new meanings with every decade that passed. When it first appeared, Mrs. Dalloway divided critics. Some found it formless, plotless, too interior. Others recognized immediately that Woolf had broken new ground. The argument, in its own way, was proof that something important had arrived. In the 1960s and 70s, feminist scholars rediscovered Woolf. She became essential reading, not just as a novelist, but as a thinker about gender and power and the architecture of women's lives. Edward Albee's play borrowed her name. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Not her story, but her reputation as someone who looked at marriage and truth without blinking. Her name became shorthand for fearless honesty. A room of one's own became a cornerstone of feminist thought. But Mrs. Dalloway is arguably more revolutionary. It doesn't argue for women's freedom. It simply shows a woman's consciousness as endlessly rich. The argument is the art itself. Today, Mrs. Dalloway is one of the most taught novels in the English language. University students across the world read it every year. The one-day structure makes it manageable. The depth makes it inexhaustible. In 1997, Vanessa Redgrave played Clarissa on screen. The film captured the flowing consciousness, the London streets, the party, but some things, the inside of a mind, resist the camera. Then came The Hours. Michael Cunningham's 1998 novel interweaved three women across a century. Woolf writing Mrs. Dalloway, a 50s housewife reading it, and a modern woman living it. The book about a day. The film of The Hours arrived in 2002. Three great actresses. One as Woolf, one as the housewife, one as the modern Clarissa. The film showed millions of people why this novel still matters. Cunningham understood something crucial: Mrs. Dalloway is not a period piece. Every generation has its own Clarissa. A person preparing a gathering, wondering if this life is enough, feeling the tug of roads not taken. Modern readers see Septimus through the lens of PTSD. What Woolf described in 1925, the flashbacks, the disconnection, the terror, we now have a clinical name for. She diagnosed a condition decades before the doctors did. Woolf depicted many different minds coexisting in one city. Clarissa's social intelligence, Septimus's overwhelming sensitivity, Peter's restless longing, Miss Kilman's rigid thinking. She celebrated neurodiversity before the word existed. Clarissa's love for Sally is now celebrated as one of literature's great queer moments. That kiss in the garden, that diamond. Virginia wrote it in 1924, decades before such love could be openly named. Virginia knew about this kind of love. She loved Vita. She loved Violet Dickinson. She understood the electricity of women's desire and the cruelty of a society that insisted it couldn't exist. She wrote it anyway. Post-colonial scholars read Peter Walsh's India differently now. His years abroad weren't adventure, they were empire. He administered a colonial system. His nostalgia carries guilt he never examines. Woolf lets us see what Peter cannot. Miss Kilman's poverty matters. Her exclusion from Clarissa's world is not just personal, it's structural. She's poor, she's plain. She sympathized with the wrong side in the war. The system has no place for her. Her rage is justified. Septimus's treatment is now read as a cautionary tale. The medical system that was supposed to help him instead drove him to death. Rest cures, forced separation, condescending doctors. Woolf's critique has only grown sharper with time. Some readers now find ecological meaning in Woolf's attention to nature. The way she describes flowers, trees, birds, weather. With such intense, loving detail, reads like an early form of environmental consciousness. In our age of constant digital connection, Clarissa's fierce protection of her privacy feels revolutionary. She demanded a room of her own, a bed of her own. The right to an inner life that no one else could access. Every carefully curated social media post is a tiny Mrs. Dalloway party. The performance of happiness, the arrangement of flowers and light for an audience, the gap between the public display and the private reality. Woolf saw it coming. Loneliness in a crowd. Walking through a city full of people and feeling utterly alone. Woolf mapped this feeling before anyone had a phrase for it. Septimus surrounded by strangers, Clarissa surrounded by guests, both isolated. The novel has no chapters. It flows without breaks from morning to night, from mind to mind, the way a river flows without stopping to announce each bend. The form is the meaning. Consciousness doesn't break for intermissions. Big Ben is the novel's metronome. It strikes and everyone hears it. Clarissa on Bond Street, Septimus in the park, Peter in his hotel. The chimes are the thread that stitches separate lives into one city, one day. Woolf's technique is called free indirect discourse. She slips from one mind to another without announcement. One sentence is Clarissa thinking. The next is Peter feeling. The transitions are invisible, like passing through a wall in a dream. Virginia called it tunneling. In her diary, she wrote about digging caves behind her characters, burrowing into their pasts to find what shaped their present. Every gesture in the novel is connected to a buried memory. The novel is woven with recurring images. The wave, the flower, the sun, the plunge. They appear and reappear like musical motifs, each time gathering new meaning, each time connecting to something earlier and something still to come. The old woman in the window is one of literature's most mysterious images. Clarissa watches her go to bed, a stranger performing the most private ritual. Something about it, the dignity, the solitude, gives Clarissa the courage to return to her party. Shakespeare's song runs through Clarissa's mind all day. Fear no more the heat o' the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. It's a funeral song that becomes a comfort. Death is rest, not punishment. Clarissa holds it like a talisman. The ambulance siren connects Septimus's death to Peter's idle observation. Peter hears it and admires the efficiency. He doesn't know he's listening to a life ending. The siren is a thread Woolf stitches between worlds that never touch. Proportion and conversion. Woolf names society's twin instruments of control. Proportion tells you to keep calm, be reasonable, don't make a fuss. Conversion tells you to think like us, feel like us, or be silenced. Together, they destroy Septimus, the hostess as artist. It's Woolf's quietly radical idea. Clarissa doesn't paint or write or compose. She creates living moments, temporary, unrepeatable, perfect. Her medium is people and light and the arrangement of a room. Why do parties matter? Because they're temporary communities. For a few hours, strangers become companions. The warmth is real even if it fades. The laughter echoes even after the guests have gone. Every party is a small defiance of solitude. The flowers. She bought them that morning, and they've been opening all day. From tight buds to full bloom. The whole novel is contained in that trajectory. The beautiful, irreversible opening of a single day. A single life. Mrs. Dalloway gives us permission. Permission to find the epic in the ordinary. To treat a woman buying flowers with the same seriousness as a man going to war. To believe that a single day contains everything. One day is enough. One single June day in London contains birth and death, love and loss, memory and hope. Virginia proved that. Clarissa lived it. And now, gently, we begin to wind this story down. Now we rest with these ideas. Let them settle into you the way evening light settles into a room. Slowly, warmly, without effort. The story has been told. What remains is feeling. Think about your own ordinary day. The morning errands, the faces you passed on the street, the coffee you made, the door you opened. All of it, Virginia would say, is worthy of a novel. You contain multitudes too. Layers of memory beneath every moment. The person you were at 18 is still there, underneath the person you are now. Clarissa knew that. Woolf knew it. You know it. The person you didn't become. Your own Peter Walsh. The path you almost took. Everyone carries one. A parallel life running alongside this one like a shadow. Clarissa chose Richard. What did you choose? The party you're planning. Or the dinner. Or the phone call you'll make tomorrow. Whatever small gathering of life you create. That's your Clarissa act. That's you saying we are here, and it matters. Woolf taught us to pay attention. That's her lasting gift. The light on the wall. The sound of a clock. The texture of a petal against your thumb. She made noticing an art form, and she gave it to everyone. Tomorrow you might buy flowers. Or pass a flower stall without stopping. Either way, you'll think of Clarissa for a moment. The novel has planted itself in you now. That's what great books do. They live inside you. Big Ben still chimes. Not the same mechanism, but the same tower, the same sound rolling across Westminster. Time still passes. The leaden circles still dissolve in the air. Some things Woolf described will outlast us all. Walking through any city at any hour, you share the pavement with strangers who contain entire novels. Heartbreaks and triumphs and private jokes and unbearable losses. All of it flowing past you in the crowd. Septimus is still with us. In every veteran struggling to readjust. in every person whose pain is invisible, in everyone who's been told to just cheer up, just get outside, just try harder. He asks us to be gentler. The old woman going to bed. That image stays with you. The simple dignity of ending a day, switching off the light, pulling up the covers. The most private act, performed 1,000 times, always alone. Privacy as treasure. In Woolf's world and in ours, the right to an inner life that nobody can access is sacred. Your thoughts are your own. Your silence is your own. That's not loneliness. That's sovereignty. Richard's roses instead of words. We all know that language. The cup of tea made without being asked. The coat held open. The light left on. Love expressed in gestures because the mouth fails, and the hands remember. It's enough. Sometimes the gesture is the whole message. The flower, the touch, the showing up. Richard couldn't say the words, but he came home every day. He brought roses. Isn't that a kind of sentence too? Sally's kiss in the garden. The moments that mark us forever arrive without warning. You can't plan them or repeat them. They happen once, in a garden, at dusk, and they rearrange your entire life without asking permission. Clarissa chose safety and she chose loss. Both at the same time. That's how choices work. Every yes is also a no. She got the quiet life and lost the wild one. She got peace and lost fire. No perfect life. Even in her beautiful Westminster house with her devoted husband and her remarkable daughter, Clarissa feels the chill of possibility foreclosed. That narrow attic bed. That question, was this enough? But she goes on. That's the thing. Clarissa returns to the party. She opens the door and walks back into the light. She chooses life again. Every morning she steps outside and buys the flowers herself. Every single morning. The courage of the everyday. Getting up when you'd rather not. Making the bed. Opening the curtains. Buying groceries. Calling someone. These aren't small acts. In a world that breaks people, ordinary continuation is heroic. Virginia knew. She knew that the ordinary is sacred, that a single day contains a whole life, that the woman arranging flowers is performing an act as meaningful as any general winning a battle. She knew, and she wrote it down. She wrote beauty while fighting darkness. Every novel was a triumph over the voices and the terrors that stalked her. The prose shines more brightly because of the shadows it pushed through to reach the page. The novels survive. That's what matters in the end. Decades have passed, and people still pick up Mrs. Dalloway and feel understood. Still walk through London and think of Clarissa. Still hear a clock and pause. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. The sentence that starts everything. 7 words that open a door into a June morning in London and a woman's entire inner life. 7 words that changed fiction. And here we are, still thinking about Clarissa, still walking through London with her, still buying flowers, still hearing Big Ben, still looking at strangers on the street and wondering what novels they carry inside them. The party goes on. In every reading the candles are lit again. Clarissa puts on her blue dress, the guests arrive, the flowers open, the music plays. Every time you open the book, it all happens again, fresh and new. Imagine the drawing room now, after midnight. The guests gone, the candles burning low, petal fragments on the tablecloth, an abandoned champagne glass catching the last flicker of firelight. The beautiful aftermath. The silver is smudged with fingerprints now. The glasses hold the ghosts of conversations. Every object in the room has been touched, moved, changed by the evening's traffic. The party wrote itself on the surfaces of things. Clarissa takes off her party shoes. She unfastens her pearls. The public woman becoming private again, the way the moon appears when clouds move. This is the Clarissa nobody sees, and she is more real than the hostess. Richard is down the hall. Asleep already, probably. His reading glasses on the nightstand, his book marked with a thumb. His quiet love filling the house the way warmth fills a room from a banked fire. Elizabeth sleeps in her room. The girl who rode the omnibus into the future today, dreaming now of whatever 17-year-olds dream of. Doctors, perhaps. Farms. Horses, something vast and shapeless and her own. Somewhere across London, Rizia sleeps too. The Italian girl alone now in the Bloomsbury room. The hat still on the table. The chair by the window empty. Sleep has taken her grief for a few merciful hours. The Thames moves on. It always does. Dark water reflecting scattered lights, carrying the city's reflections downstream toward the sea. The river doesn't mourn. It doesn't celebrate. It just flows. There's comfort in that. Big Ben strikes 12. Midnight. The day is officially over. The same chime that marked Clarissa's morning now marks the end of everything. The leaden circles dissolve one last time. Wednesday is finished. Sleep can begin. But the day lives on, in memory, in fiction, in us. That Wednesday in June, 1923, is still happening somewhere inside Mrs. Dalloway. It will never fully end. That's the magic of a novel time folds. A novel can do that. Make one day eternal. Freeze a June morning in London, so that 100 years later, in the middle of the night, someone can step inside it and feel the sun. You carry Clarissa now. Her morning walk lives somewhere in your mind. The green dress, the flowers, the front door opening onto Bond Street. She's become part of your inner landscape. She'll surface at odd moments. You carry Septimus too. His suffering is a question that doesn't go away. How do we treat those who feel too much? How do we care without controlling? His presence in your mind is a kind of vigilance. Peter's longing stays with you. That ache for what might have been. The pocket knife turning and turning. The man who crossed an ocean and still couldn't let go. We all know a Peter. Some of us are one. Sally's wildness stays too. The part of youth that refuses to be practical. The girl who ran through the house with flowers and kissed people and shocked everyone. We need our Sallys. They remind us we were once untamed, and Rizia's devotion. Love that couldn't save but refused to abandon. She stayed, she made hats. She held his arm. When everything was falling apart, she kept her hands busy and her heart open. That matters. These characters don't end when the novel ends. They keep walking through London in every reader's imagination. Clarissa still buys flowers. Septimus still sees Evans. Peter still opens his pocket knife. They're alive in the only way fiction can be alive. The city at night now quieter, the traffic thinning to single cars on empty avenues. A fox crossing the road. A distant train. London breathing in its sleep, dreaming its own dreams of empire and flowers and time. Stars above London. The same stars Clarissa might have seen from her attic window. The same ones Septimus saw through the eyes of madness as messages from the divine. The sky doesn't care who's looking. It shines anyway. The flowers in the dark, still fragrant. The roses Clarissa arranged still releasing their perfume into the empty room. You don't need to see beauty for it to be there. It persists. It doesn't require an audience. Breathing slows, not just yours, the city's. The whole vast organism of London exhaling into the small hours. The story settling into your chest like warmth from a cup of tea held between your palms. No need to hold on to every detail. Let the names and dates wash through you like music. What stays will stay. What fades was meant to fade. The important thing finds its own place in your memory. The important thing stays. The feeling of one complete day, fully lived, fully noticed. The sense that your own days contain this much richness, if you only look. That's what Virginia left us. That's the gift. Virginia would understand this. The drifting, the letting go. She knew that sleep and art share something. A surrendering of control. You stop trying to hold the world together. You let it hold you instead. The mind drifts. From thought to thought, from image to image, the way her sentences drift. One moment you're on Bond Street. The next, you're in a garden. The next, nowhere at all. That's consciousness. That's Woolf. That's the gift. Consciousness flowing gently toward rest. The leaden circles dissolving in the air. The day ending. The novel closing. The mind softening. Let it flow. You're almost there. The room grows quieter now. Fewer words needed, more space between them. Like the silences in music that make the notes mean something. We're in the quietest part of the evening. Stay here. Think of Clarissa's drawing room. The curtains are drawn now. One lamp still glows in the corner. The roses release their fragrance to no one. The room breathes slowly, holding the memory of voices. The flowers releasing their last perfume, sweet and fading and perfect. The way the best things are, not loud, not insistent, just present, still giving even when no one is there to receive. That's generosity, that's a rose. A June night in London. Warm enough for open windows. The distant sounds filtering in, a dog barking somewhere, a door closing, a motor car on a far street. The city's lullaby composed of small sounds and silences. The hum of the city, never fully silent even at this hour. Like a sleeping animal breathing, slow, deep, constant. London rests but doesn't stop. Somewhere a night bus runs. Somewhere a baker starts work. The city turns. Regent's Park in darkness. The paths empty, the trees standing patient as sentinels. The benches where people sat today, where Peter dreamed, where Septimus saw Evans, are empty now. The park rests, the park remembers nothing. The bench where Peter fell asleep this afternoon, empty now. Moonlight on the iron armrest where his hand rested. The dreams he had here have evaporated. But we remember them. Woolf made sure of that. The grass where Septimus sat. The same blades, the same roots, the same earth. Peace has returned to this patch of ground. Whatever he saw and heard here, the birds, the visions, the park holds no record. Only the novel does. Water in a fountain. The only sound in the sleeping park. Gentle and repetitive, the same note over and over, not trying to be music but becoming it anyway. Water falling. Water rising. The simplest rhythm in the world. Somewhere a smaller clock chimes. Not Big Ben, a parish church softer, more tentative. A gentler voice marking the small hours. The hours that belong to no one, when the city is most itself, most honest. The hours dissolving. Time losing its edges the way it does before sleep. The difference between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock means nothing now. The clock still measures, but the mind has stopped counting. Let it. Clarissa in her narrow bed. The attic room, the white coverlet, the window cracked open to the night. She's turned off the lamp. Her eyes are adjusting to the dark. The ceiling she knows by heart appears above her, familiar as a face. The cool sheets. Clean linen against skin. The particular comfort of a bed that knows your shape. Clarissa's body releasing the tension of the day, each muscle loosening, the performance finally truly over. Just a woman, just a bed, just rest. Her mind still turning, but slower now. Like a wheel that's been spinning fast all day and is winding down. Thoughts drift past without urgency. The party, Peter's face, Elizabeth sleeping, the stranger who fell. Then less, then less. Sally's face appears one more time. Young Sally laughing in the garden, dark hair wild. The most exquisite moment. That kiss. Clarissa holds it once more, then lets it dissolve gently like smoke. Like a dream you don't quite catch. Then it fades, not sadly. Gently, the way smoke thins and disappears. The way morning mist lifts from a river. The way all good things end. Not with a crash, but with a softening. A loosening, a letting go. Peter puts away his pocket knife. Finally, sets it on the hotel nightstand, his restless hands folded on his chest. The fidgeting that lasted 30 years coming to rest for the night. Even Peter can be still. Richard's reading glasses on the nightstand. The book marked and closed. His careful domestic gestures completed for another day. A lamp switched off. A pillow adjusted. The small choreography of a good man going to sleep. The house settles. Old wood adjusting to the cool night air. Creaks and sighs from the staircase. The particular sounds a house makes when everyone is asleep. Not silence exactly. The voice of the house itself talking to its bones. London settling. The last buses completing their routes. The final trains pulling into stations. Street lamps dimming where the gas runs low. The great machine of the city coasting into its quietest gear. Almost still. Almost. The Thames at low tide. Mud banks in the ancient river smell. Salt and stone and something older than the city. The water has pulled back to reveal what's usually hidden. Even rivers need to rest from being full. Stars reflected in the river. Scattered, trembling, broken by the current into fragments of light, like memories reflected in the mind, never quite still, never quite sharp, always moving, always beautiful, always slightly out of reach. And you, wherever you are, settling to your own room, your own bed, your own version of Clarissa's attic, the place where the day ends and the private self emerges, the place where rest lives, your own day ending. Whatever kind of day it was, busy or quiet, difficult or easy, remarkable or ordinary, it was a day, it contained things. And now it's done, and that's fine. Clarissa would approve. The book beside you, or the voice in your ears, carrying you gently downstream. Either way, someone has been talking to you about a woman who bought flowers one morning in London. And somehow that was enough for a whole evening. No need for more. The story has been told. The flowers bought and arranged and admired and wilting now in the dark room. The party happened. The guests came. The candles burned. Everything that needed to happen, happened. The party is over. And it was beautiful. And that's fine. Everything beautiful ends. That's not sad. That's what makes it beautiful. The ending is part of the gift. Woolf understood that. Clarissa understood that. Fear no more. The words Clarissa carried all day, Shakespeare's old comfort. Fear no more the heat of the sun, no more labor, no more striving. Just rest, earned and gentle and deep. That's where we're headed now. Shakespeare's words traveled from Cymbeline through Clarissa's mind and now through yours. Centuries of comfort, hand to hand, book to book, voice to voice. The great chain of people telling each other it's all right. You can rest. Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers come to dust. But not tonight. Tonight is for the living part, the breathing part, the warm, quiet, held together part that comes before morning. Tonight is for rest, and rest is beautiful too. Not the opposite of living, part of it. The tide goes out and the tide comes in, sleep and waking. Clarissa's morning and Clarissa's night, both equally alive. Virginia would tell you this. Put the book down, let the mind float. Stop holding the words and let them hold you. She spent her whole life learning how consciousness moves. She knew it needs to rest. The waves. That was her other great title. And also what sleep feels like. Waves, rising and falling. The rhythm that carries you out and brings you back. The oldest rhythm there is, older than language, older than thought. Rising and falling. Breath and waves and the rhythm of consciousness ebbing. In and out. In and out. The chest rising. The chest falling. The oldest lullaby. No words needed. Just the rhythm. Just the motion. Just the breath. The old woman across the way. She's in bed now. The lamp long since switched off. The room dark and warm and entirely hers. She doesn't know anyone watched her. She doesn't need to know. She simply rests. Quiet now. Just quiet and the dark and the distant city humming in its sleep. No more analysis, no more names and dates. Just the feeling, the warm, complete, slightly melancholy feeling of a good story told well. One last thought of Clarissa, standing at the top of the stairs in her blue gown, about to descend into the party, into the light, into the company of people she has gathered, radiant, composed, fully present, radiant and composed, about to enter the party of sleep now. Not Clarissa's party, yours. The quiet gathering that happens behind your eyelids, where the day's characters assemble one last time and then dissolve, for there she was. And there you are, present, here, alive in this moment. The most ordinary and most extraordinary thing in the world, being here, being now. 4 words that contain everything, for there you are. Good night. From Clarissa, from Virginia, from London itself, sleeping now beneath its quilt of stars. Good night. The day was beautiful, and now, gently, we let it go. The gentlest hour now. The one where words become whispers and whispers become breath. We're past the story, past the analysis, past everything but the feeling. Just this, just warmth, just quiet. No more story, just the feeling of it. Warm and complete, like a coat you've been wearing all evening and have only just noticed. The story surrounds you now. It doesn't need to be told. It just is. Like flowers in a dark room. You know they're there even with your eyes closed. The fragrance reaches you. The color is somewhere in your mind. Clarissa's roses, still blooming in the dark, still giving their perfume to no one and everyone. The pearl necklace put away. The party dress hung up. The day folded and stored like linen in a drawer. Everything that needed to happen today has happened. Tomorrow is its own business. Tonight belongs to rest. Somewhere in London, always at any hour, someone is just waking while someone else is just falling asleep. The city never stops passing the baton of consciousness. Right now, it passes to the sleepers. To you. The great wheel of days. Turning, carrying us from morning to night and back again. Clarissa's wheel. Virginia's wheel. Yours. The same wheel, the same rhythm. Tomorrow it turns again. But that's tomorrow. This is now. You chose to spend this hour here. With Clarissa, with Virginia, with Peter and Septimus and Sally and Rizia. With London. With me. Thank you for that. It was a kind of party, wasn't it? Two consciousnesses meeting across the dark. That's what a story is. One mind reaches out and another receives. The distance between us collapses for an hour. Virginia knew this was sacred, and it is. And now the guests depart. Slowly, warmly. No rush. Like Clarissa's guests putting on their coats and lingering at the door for one last word. The leave-taking is part of the evening. The goodbye is part of the gift. The candles guttering. Light becoming memory. Memory becoming dream. The gentle cascade from waking to sleeping that your body knows how to do without your help. You've done it 10,000 times. Your body remembers. Regent's Park at dawn. It will be beautiful tomorrow morning, with mist on the lawns and the first joggers and the ducks on the lake. But you don't need to see it. Just knowing it's there is enough. Sleep now. Like the Thames just flowing. No effort needed. The current knows where to go. You don't have to steer. Just let the water carry you. Dark water. Warm current, gentle motion. Flowing and flowing and flowing. Consciousness dissolving. That's what Woolf called it. The leaden circles. Big Ben strikes and the sound expands outward and fades. Your thoughts do the same now. Expanding, softening, fading. And that's fine. Let them. Dissolving in the air. Expanding outward like rings on water. Like smoke from a blown-out candle. Like the last note of a bell. Getting wider and thinner and lighter until it becomes part of everything. Part of the silence. Your own stream of consciousness. Slowing now. Drifting. Releasing each thought as it arrives, letting it pass through without holding on. The way Woolf's sentences flow from one mind to the next. Let yours flow too, towards sleep. The flowers will still be there in the morning. A little wilted maybe, but still fragrant. Still beautiful. Some things survive the night. The roses know how. And so do you. You've done this before. You'll do it again. The city will still be there when you wake. London, or wherever you are. The streets, the strangers, the particular light of your morning. It will all be waiting. It doesn't need you to watch it. It carries on. The novel will be there too, whenever you want to return. Clarissa will open her front door again. The June morning will be fresh again. The flowers will be waiting at the shop. Nothing in fiction ever truly ends. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. That's where it began. A woman opening a door into the morning. The simplest act. The bravest act. Stepping out into a new day and saying this will be enough. And she did. She bought the flowers. She gave the party. She stood at the top of the stairs. She went on living. And the day was enough. The day was enough. It always is, if you look at it the way Virginia did. Enough. That's the word to sleep on tonight. Not perfection. Not achievement. Not more. Just enough. The day was enough. The story was enough. This moment, right now, is enough. Let that word hold you. The warmth of enough. Not too much. Not too little. Just the right amount of story. The right amount of silence. The right amount of darkness. Your body knows this temperature. It's the temperature of sleep. You're already there. Your breath. Even and slow now, whether you know it or not. The chest rising and falling like a wave. Like the Thames. Like Woolf's sentences. The rhythm that carries everything. The rhythm that needs no thought. Just breathing. like walking into warm water. That's what sleep is. Gradual, enveloping, gentle. The surface rises past your ankles, your knees, your waist. You're still here. But the water holds more of you now. Let it. It's warm. Almost no words now. Just the smallest ones, the quietest ones, the ones that barely need to be said at all. Hush. Rest. Sleep. There. Just the feeling. Of a day well spent. A story well told. A party that was beautiful while it lasted. And now the quiet after. The good quiet. The quiet that means something was here, and it was enough. The old woman's light is off, and yours can be too. Switch it off now if you haven't already. Join the sleepers. Join London. Join Clarissa in her narrow bed. The company of rest is the gentlest company there is. Good night, sweet Clarissa. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you for the party. Thank you for standing at the top of the stairs and descending into the light. Thank you for going on. Good night, brave Septimus. You felt everything. You saw what others couldn't. The world wasn't kind enough for you, but the novel holds you gently. In the pages you are safe. In the pages the birds still sing. Good night, restless Peter. Put the knife away. The woman you loved is sleeping peacefully 3 streets away. She chose well. So did you, by loving her. Not all love needs to be lived. Some love just needs to last. Good night, wild Sally. The girl who ran with flowers and kissed without asking. Your Lady Rossiter now asleep in your grand house. But somewhere in the garden, the 18-year-old version of you is still running. She always will be. Good night, faithful Rezia. You sewed hats from feathers and silk. You tried to hold your husband here with the sheer force of your love. It wasn't enough to save him, but it was enough to be beautiful. It was more than enough. Good night, dear Virginia. You gave us this. One June day in London, made eternal. You fought the darkness with sentences and you won, page by page, word by word, flower by flower. Thank you. Sleep well. Good night, dear listener. Thank you for this hour. Thank you for staying. Thank you for caring about a woman who bought flowers on a June morning 100 years ago. Now close your eyes. The party is over. The flowers are sleeping too. For there you were, and now you rest. The leaden circles dissolve. The flowers hold their scent. The day was enough. The story was enough. You are enough. Good night.